There are periods in the market where the best thing that you can possibly do is sit on your hands. That is exactly what we're seeing right now for Bitcoin if you're not positioned from lower. In today's video, I'll be taking you through what I think could be happening next in the market, and we'll also be having a bear market discussion. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So first of all, Bitcoin is essentially at the exact same price from yesterday's video. Now, we discussed potentially forming a bottom around here, but as we've also mentioned several times before, it takes a while for bottoms to be formed. I shared with you in my previous video that I did go ahead and knife catch this big capitulation wick down, and naturally we are sitting in some nice profits. However, I'm not adjusting this position whatsoever because I secured some profits, and if we are to move higher, I will likely take some more profits off of this trade because what you can see here is that we are still very much in a downtrend. It would not surprise me whatsoever if Bitcoin were to move up here towards the yearly open as we discussed and then come back down only to create a more convincing bottom here. I don't think that we will just V-shape reverse all the way up to all-time highs. Now we'll have to see how it plays out. If we start to reconfirm above that yearly open, then maybe we'll be having a different discussion. But as a matter of fact, what I'm looking at right now for Bitcoin in particular is for us to continue to grind up, and if we do get some acceptance above $90,000, this would be a potential shorting zone as most people start piling into longs. However, I am not shorting Bitcoin currently, and I showed you my trade, simply just sitting in it, and I also posted a new trade setup for Ethereum in my premium group. If Bitcoin is to continue to trickle on higher from these levels, we will likely see Ethereum outperform ever so slightly, along with other altcoins. However, base case here is that we still continue to chop around, even if we get another move higher before rolling over. I know this is probably not what you want to hear, and again, if you're not a seasoned trader, it's perfectly okay to just sit on your hands because this will chop out a lot of traders. The only reason I'm long here is because we managed to catch a pretty solid level just below $83,000 on my most recent Bitcoin trade. Secured some profits, letting the rest sit here. A reminder, if you want to join my premium group where I share my own personal trade setups before I hop on YouTube, you have the first link in my description down below. DM me the word premium on Telegram and I'd be happy to onboard you into my free premium group. The only requirement, as I've always been saying, is that you have to sign up with one of my affiliate exchange links and start trading on there as you normally would. Now, it's perfectly simple. If you already have a Bluffin account, we can simply transfer you under my referral so you can get access to my free premium group. Reminder as well, disclaimer in the description down below. Pretty big one here. I am not a financial advisor. I'm just a guy on the internet sharing his own crypto insights and of course some of my trade setups. Now let's jump back into it. This is going to be a pretty short video here because Bitcoin has simply done nothing. We just continue to chop around. There's a lot of shorts piling in, but there's also a lot of longs trying to catch this move in case we can move higher. My stop is at break even. I'm simply going to be waiting this out. Now, let's take a look at the liquidity charts to show you what I'm talking about. Right here, you can see all the way up to just around $89,000. There is quite a lot of short liquidity getting built up, and to the downside, all the way down to around $84,500, there's a lot of long liquidity. That's why I've been saying if you're not already positioned, I simply would wait it out. And taking a look at this liquidation map, you can see that it is relatively even on the 7-day time frame. Longs piling in, shorts piling in as well. There's a little bit more cumulative short liquidation leverage. On the 30-day time frame, still a lot more shorts in this market. However, you can see that the longs are starting to pile up from approximately $81,000 all the way up to where we're currently at just above $86,000. And until we have more clarity, it is wise to be patient. I wanted to discuss the bear market because let's take a look at this comment that I got on my previous video. Haha, lower than 70K. From the highs in every single bull market, Bitcoin drops over 75%. Now, will history repeat? In my opinion, yes. Some of you may think otherwise. I can completely understand that simply because we have that institutional interest nowadays. However, I still firmly believe that until proven otherwise, the bear market will be relatively similar to what we've seen in the past. Now, Bitcoin has been getting diminishing returns. That means we've been going up a lot less in bull markets. However, we've also been going down a lot less in bear markets. So what this means is you can see here that in the first ever cycle for Bitcoin, we essentially dropped over 90% from the all-time high. This is the drawdown from all-time high chart. You can see in the next cycle, we essentially dropped over 80% from the all-time highs. In the following cycle, it was a very similar one, over 80%. And in the most recent bear market that we had with that whole FTX collapse, you can see that we dropped just approximately over 75% from the highs, that is. So what does this mean? Will Bitcoin drop 80%, 90% from the highs? In my opinion, no, because rightfully, there is more institutional interest nowadays. We have the Bitcoin spot ETFs, and therefore, I simply do not believe that Bitcoin will dump 85% from the highs, for example. However, you can see that right now, we essentially only dropped 30% from the highs. So taking a look at Bitcoin on this chart to paint a clearer picture, this is not that big of a correction. Now, you might think that that's absolutely ridiculous to say, but seeing as history likely repeats once more, if we take it from the high $126,000 to where we dipped down to, Bitcoin dropped approximately 36%. Let's assume that we continue the same trend and Bitcoin does drop significantly from the all-time highs into a bear market. That would see Bitcoin drop all the way down. For example, let's just take 70% because that would be less than the previous cycles, down to below $40,000. Now that would be absolutely insane, and I would be seeing this as the opportunity of a lifetime once more. This is probably not what you want to hear. I'm not calling for Bitcoin to drop below $40,000. As a matter of fact, maybe we only drop to around 50,000, or maybe we only drop to around 60,000. But the truth is, no one really knows how low Bitcoin will go in the bear market. All we have are these short historic cycles to compare to. So here's my strategy. Once Bitcoin starts dropping below $70,000, I will be allocating a small percentage of my cash position to rebuy Bitcoin in preparation for the next bull market, that is. Then the lower we go, the more that I'd be willing to allocate. Now, I shared this in my premium group the other day. That's how I will be playing it. The lower we go, the more I buy. For example, let's say you have that 100% cash position. Maybe you only allocate around 5% once Bitcoin drops below $70,000. Then you allocate around 20% should Bitcoin drop below $60,000. Then, if we start to get signs of bottoming out, for example, right around this previous cycle when we had the FTX collapse, Bitcoin was showing those initial signs of bottoming out. You can always accumulate back towards the upside. So what I mean by this is in this cycle, I actually accumulated Bitcoin all the way up to $30,000. Yes, I bought some Bitcoin below 20K, but I stopped my overall accumulation at around $30,000. Now this set me up for the massive bull market that we got. And yes, that was a bull market. Just because alts didn't perform that well, it doesn't mean that we didn't get a bull market. As a matter of fact, I also touched on this in my community. It's hard to say that we didn't get some decent altcoin moves when we had meme coins literally going to billions of dollars of valuation. Now, I still think that Bitcoin will be repeating these cycles time and time again until it gets mature enough as an asset class. And what that means is I'm banking on the fact that Bitcoin will likely drop at least 60% from the highs. I would be accumulating so much Bitcoin around those levels if I get this opportunity to do so. Now, I use all of the trades to accumulate more Bitcoin. That is my base case. Now, if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know that I firmly believe in Bitcoin's future and that it will likely continue to increase over time. So I will be accumulating should we get these kinds of prices. Now, the lower we go, the more I accumulate. I've made it clear enough. If you want to know exactly what my strategy will be day by day, minute by minute, you do have my premium group, which is the first link in my description down below. Now, I don't want to scare you with all this bear market talk. Let's talk about the short term here. Honestly, I still think we continue to chop around. Maybe we get that next little move up to $90,000, liquidate some of those shorts, and then come back down. But ultimately, this is is the area where I think we will form a bottom, and this bottom will likely provide that bigger relief rally that I've been discussing in the market. That would likely take us back above $100,000 if history is to repeat. Now, quickly touching on USDT dominance, it's simple. We do not want to see USDT dominance continue to increase, and this is the area where I am expecting us to roll over to create that relief rally. However, what will likely happen is some continued chopping around before we go ahead and move lower, and then we head into the bear market, because yes, if we were to break 6.76% with confidence, that would be the bear market, and we would likely go much, much lower. I still think that this market has a little bit left to give, if I'm being honest. Now, let's also take a look at the fact that the Bitcoin spot ETFs saw some inflows yesterday. Not time to get excited whatsoever, only around $130 million worth of inflows. However, BlackRock are accumulating. We want BlackRock on our side at this point in time if we are to carve out a bottom. We can also touch on the fact that the Bitfinex whales continue to increase their long positions. We've covered this at length over the past few videos, but ultimately these guys are betting on a big reversal. Whether Bitcoin continues to chop around or not remains to be seen. These guys have been typically right over the course of this cycle. Also, if you are a relatively big trader, please know that I do have some VIP perks if you sign up with me on Bluffin. If you deposit $100,000, you can get VIP 3 as long as you've used my referral link. So if you're a seasoned trader, I would highly recommend you do this simply because you get the lowest fees available. That would be the second link in my description down below. And that's basically all I wanted to discuss in today's video. If you don't believe Bitcoin can go below $70,000, well, I have some harsh news for you. Look, in those bear markets is when you accumulate Bitcoin. Obviously, you can do whatever you want. I'm just sharing with you exactly what I would be doing, and that's what sets you up for success in the next bull market. So right now, my strategy is pretty clear. Trade the market that's in front of me, make as much profits as possible, and then go ahead and reaccumulate Bitcoin near the bear market bottoms to ride the next wave up. In the short term, Bitcoin is trying to form a local bottom, but I would be expecting it to continue to chop around, shaking out a lot of traders that haven't been positioned from the lows or from higher up shorting. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. I have my Bluffin leverage trading tutorial right here, which is exactly how I trade this market, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.